Before the time of memory, before rivers carved their paths and trees reached their roots into the soil, the world existed in a state of profound silence. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia tell us that this was the age before Dreamtime had truly unfolded, a period of stillness where the earth had form, but no rhythm. There was no law, no ceremony, and no guiding presence to instruct living beings on how to walk in balance with the land. This silence was not peaceful. It was incomplete. Creation awaited a spark, and order awaited a hand that could shape it into harmony. It was in this vast emptiness that the figure of Baiame, later called the Sky Father, emerged to become the first creator and lawgiver. Dreamtime is not merely a collection of myths or legends. It is, for Aboriginal peoples, the spiritual fabric of existence itself. It is a cosmology that explains how the land, its creatures, and its people came into being, and how they continue to be connected. Within this worldview, time is not linear but cyclical. Past, present, and future overlap in the dreaming. The arrival of Baiame in these stories marks the critical moment when formlessness was given structure and when chaos was tempered by laws that made survival, community, and spirituality possible. Without Baiame, the world would remain suspended in aimless drifting, with no foundation to sustain life. The introduction of Baiame into Aboriginal cosmology cannot be separated from his dual role as both a creator and a lawgiver. He was not merely a craftsman shaping rivers and mountains. He was also a teacher who imparted to humanity the sacred principles of living in balance. In this sense, Baiame is not a distant deity removed from human affairs. Rather, he is ever present, watching over the ceremonies, the land, and the daily choices of those who walk upon it. The first creator ensured that life would flourish, but the lawgiver ensured that such flourishing would remain just and sustainable. In many accounts, Baiame is said to have descended from the heavens. His arrival was not marked by thunder or destruction, but by light and guidance. From the sky, he looked upon the earth, its barren plains, unformed rivers, and silent valleys, and recognized the potential within it. Where there was dryness, he caused water to flow. Where there was emptiness, he created mountains and forests. With each step, he shaped the landscape, leaving behind imprints that Aboriginal communities later identified as sacred sites. These geographical features became not just natural formations, but living testaments to Baiame's presence and power. But creation alone was not enough. The people who emerged from the land required guidance, for without boundaries and instruction, they risked falling into disorder. Baiame's laws were not imposed arbitrarily. They were born from observation of the Earth's natural rhythms. The cycles of the seasons, the migration of animals, the rising and setting of the stars. All of these informed the principles Baiame gave to humankind. To hunt only in season, to share food within the group, to respect the animals that serve as totems, to honor the elders and teach the young. These were not suggestions, but sacred rules meant to preserve harmony. In the beginning, then, Baiame's role was not only to awaken creation, but also to anchor it in justice. The people came to know him as the All-Father, the Sky God, the one who gave them fire, tools, and ceremonies. His generosity was matched by his authority, for with gifts came responsibilities. Communities were bound by what Baiame taught. To break the law was to disrupt not just social order, but the balance of the entire world. It is important to understand that within Aboriginal culture, law is not a human invention separate from the land. Law, or lore as it is sometimes called, is inscribed in the very fabric of creation. Baiame revealed these truths so that human beings could live in accordance with them, ensuring survival not only for themselves, but for all living beings around them. Across different Aboriginal nations, Baiame's presence is remembered in varied but interconnected ways. Some recount that he created the first people from the red earth itself, breathing life into them so they could walk, speak, and sing. Others emphasize his role in establishing initiation ceremonies, teaching men the sacred songs and dances that would pass on knowledge from generation to generation. Still others tell of his family, his wife Bora and his son Duramulam, who played vital roles in sustaining creation and assisting humanity. Yet through all these variations, the central truth remains. Baiame is the origin of order. He is the one who lifted humanity from a state of ignorance into a state of law and meaning. The introduction of Baiame also offers us a window into the profound relationship between Aboriginal peoples and their land. Unlike creation stories in some cultures, which often place humanity above or outside nature, Dreamtime teaches that people are woven into the same fabric as animals, rivers, and stars. Baiame's laws reflect this interconnectedness. To harm the land is to harm oneself. To forget the ceremonies is to lose connection with the ancestors. In this worldview, the sacred is not hidden in distant temples, but is alive in every rock, every waterhole, every songline. Baiame's gift was not simply the establishment of rules, but the revelation that life is sacred, and that law is a reflection of that sacredness. As an introduction, it is essential to recognize that Baiame is not a mythological figure in the Western sense of the word. He is not confined to the pages of a storybook or the past of an ancient culture. For many Aboriginal communities, Baiame is still present, felt in rituals, seen in sacred sites, and remembered through stories that continue to be told. To speak of Baiame is not to recount a dead religion, but to honor a living spiritual tradition. This distinction matters, for the dreaming is not history that has ended. It is reality that continues. Thus, before exploring the many dimensions of Baiame's role as creator, lawgiver, and protector, one must first appreciate the world that awaited him. A world of silence, potential, and unformed landscapes. Into this silence came light, guidance, and law. Baiame's emergence transformed existence from stillness into song, from emptiness into community, and from chaos into balance. Without this foundation, the stories of Dreamtime would lack their anchor. With it, they gain their enduring power. The introduction to Baiame is not merely the beginning of a story, it is the beginning of meaning itself. It tells us why the world is shaped as it is, why people live as they do, and why ceremonies remain sacred. As we move into the deeper parts of this narrative, we will follow Baiame's journey, his shaping of landscapes, his creation of beings, his establishment of sacred law, and his enduring legacy. But first, we must carry with us the memory of what came before. A world waiting in silence for the Sky Father to arrive, a people waiting to be awakened, and a land waiting to be given voice. When the silence of the world stretched long and heavy, when the winds did not stir and the rivers had not yet carved their beds, the sky itself seemed to lean low in anticipation. It was in this time of waiting that Baiame came. His arrival did not shatter the stillness with violence, nor did it overwhelm the earth with fire. Instead, his coming was like the first light of dawn breaking across a horizon that had only known night. It was gentle yet decisive, soft yet transformative. Baiame is often called the Sky Father, and it is said that he descended from the heavens, carrying with him the wisdom and power necessary to shape a formless land into a living world. The sky was his cloak, the stars his companions, and the vastness of space his dwelling. Yet he chose to enter the world below, for the earth waited to be completed, and the people yet unborn needed guidance. Unlike spirits who move through chaos with unpredictability, Baiame arrived with a clear purpose: to create, to order, and to teach. The Aboriginal peoples who tell of Baiame describe him as vast and radiant, a figure who could stride across mountains and whose voice carried the resonance of thunder, though without its violence. When he walked, the ground beneath him took shape. Valleys formed where his feet pressed down. Rivers flowed where he dragged his staff. Forests grew where his hands brushed the soil. His movements were not random, but intentional, each step an act of creation. In this way, Baiame did not merely impose a design on the earth, but called forth the potential already waiting within it. Among the most enduring images of Baiame is the way he traced the patterns of the land. Sacred sites across Australia are believed to be the places where Baiame rested, sang, or shaped the world. These places are not just markers of geographical curiosity. They are evidence of his journey. To Aboriginal communities, the land itself is the scripture, and its features are the verses. Baiame's coming turned the earth into a sacred text, written not in ink but in stone, water, and soil. But creation for Baiame was not limited to landscapes. With his arrival came the beginnings of life. The still rivers were filled with fish. The plains grew kangaroos and emus. The skies filled with birds whose songs echoed the music of the Dreamtime. Each creature carried its purpose, its role within the larger balance. Baiame ensured that no animal existed in isolation. Each was part of a web of relationships that sustained the whole. Humans, too, would eventually take their place within this system, but first, the world had to be made ready for them. That it is said that Baiame sang as he worked. His voice carried melodies that resonated with the earth, and these songs shaped creation just as much as his hands and feet did. This is why song is sacred in Aboriginal tradition. Song lines, which trace the journeys of the creator beings, are not merely navigational tools, but living records of how the world came into being. To sing a song line is to retrace Baiame's steps, to relive his acts of creation, and to reaffirm the connection between people and land. In this way, the coming of Baiame was not only a physical arrival, but also a musical awakening. Yet Baiame's role extended beyond mere creation. From the moment of his descent, he came as a lawgiver. He understood that life without guidance would falter. Rivers might run dry if not respected. Animals might vanish if hunted without care, and communities might fracture without rules to hold them together. Thus, Baiame's coming was as much about law as it was about land. His very presence was a promise that existence would not descend into chaos. Order and balance were woven into creation from the beginning, ensuring that all beings could thrive together. One of the remarkable qualities of Baiame's coming is that it was not accompanied by conquest or domination. Unlike some mythologies where God sees power through struggle or violence, Baiame's creation was harmonious. He did not fight against the land, but worked with it, shaping its latent possibilities. His laws were not burdens imposed from above, but reflections of the rhythms already present in nature. In this sense, Baiame's coming was a revelation. He revealed what was always true, that harmony depends on respect, and that respect depends on knowledge. The people, when they came into being, would later recognize Baiame as their father and teacher. But even before their creation, his presence prepared the way. By shaping the land, he gave them a home. By filling the world with animals and plants, he gave them sustenance. By establishing laws, he gave them community. And by embedding songs into the landscape, he gave them memory. All of these gifts were contained in his coming, and all were given without demand for repayment. There are sacred sites where Baiame is especially remembered, such as the Baiame Caves in New South Wales, where ancient rock art depicts a large figure with outstretched arms. These images are not idle decorations, but enduring reminders of his descent and presence. To stand before them is to stand in the shadow of creation itself, to recall that the Sky Father walked among the earth and shaped it with purpose. His coming is not confined to the distant past, but continues to be present in these places, where story, law, and land converge. For Aboriginal peoples, telling the story of Baiame's coming is not simply a way of recounting origins. It is an act of cultural survival. Each retelling reaffirms the truth that people, land, and law are inseparable. Baiame's descent from the heavens is not only about a figure arriving. It is about the birth of meaning. Before him, the earth was silent. With him, it became a song. In this way, the coming of Baiame is both cosmic and intimate. It speaks of vast landscapes shaped by a divine figure, but it also speaks of the daily lives of people who continue to live by his laws. To gather food in season, to honor elders, to sing the songs of ancestors. These are not random customs, but reflections of Baiame's original teachings. Every act of living rightly is a way of welcoming him again into the world. Thus, the story of Baiame's coming is not merely the second chapter of creation. It is the foundation of law, memory, and identity. It tells us that existence itself is a gift, that order is possible, and that humanity has a place within the great web of life. The silence of the earth was broken not by noise, but by wisdom. The world was not conquered, but awakened. And the Sky Father, Baiame, came not to dominate but to teach. After shaping the mountains and rivers, after singing forests and plains into existence, Baiame turned his attention to the greatest of all tasks, the creation of life that would walk upon the earth, swim in its waters, and soar across its skies. His earlier acts had prepared the land, ensuring that it was abundant and balanced. But the world remained incomplete until beings could live within it and reflect the harmony he had woven into its design. That Baiame's approach to creation was not hurried. Just as he had shaped the landscape with intention, so too did he shape the beings of the earth with care. He began with the animals, for they would serve as both companions and teachers to the people yet to come. From the red soil, he formed kangaroos, giving them strong legs to bound across the plains. From the flowing rivers, he brought forth fish, sleek and quick, filling the waters with abundance. Birds were shaped to fill the skies, their songs echoing the Dreamtime melodies he had sung when shaping the land. Reptiles and insects emerged, each playing its role in the cycle of life. But these creatures were not created randomly. Each carried with it a lesson, a quality that contributed to the balance of the whole. The eagle taught vision and vigilance, soaring high to see the wide world below. The kangaroo embodied strength and forward motion, always leaping, never walking backward. The crow, clever and cunning, reminded humanity of wit and resourcefulness. Even the smallest insect had its role, reminding all beings that no life was insignificant. To Baiame, creation was not about hierarchy, but about interconnectedness. Each being was necessary, and each bore a spark of the sacred. With the animals complete, Baiame turned to the task of shaping humanity. In some traditions, he molded people from the very earth itself, sculpting them with his hands from red ochre clay. Into these forms, he breathed the breath of life, awakening them to walk and speak. These first people opened their eyes to a world already alive with animals, plants, and landscapes, a world prepared for them to inhabit. They were not placed above creation, but within it, as part of its fabric. Their survival would depend not on domination, but on respect for the laws Baiame had already inscribed into the earth that ensure this respect. Baiame gave each group of people a totem. Totems were not merely symbols. They were living connections between human beings and the natural world. A clan might be given the kangaroo, another the emu, another the eagle. Each totem was both an identity and a responsibility. Those who belonged to the kangaroo totem were forbidden from hunting kangaroos recklessly. Instead, they were charged with protecting and honoring the animal. Through totems, people came to see that they were kin to the creatures around them, bound in a network of relationships that mirrored the interconnectedness of all creation. The system of totems also shaped the way communities organized themselves. Totems determined marriage laws, teaching people whom they could and could not marry, ensuring diversity and balance within the group. They also guided ritual responsibilities, with each totem carrying its own songs, dances, and stories. In this way, Baiame ensured that the people would never forget their connection to the natural world, for every aspect of their lives was tied to it. When a child was born, their totem marked not only their identity, but also their duty to the land and to the creatures that shared it. These relationships were reinforced through story. Baiame told the people that each animal, each plant, each natural feature carried a story, and it was their responsibility to remember and pass these stories down. Forgetting a story was not simply a matter of neglect. It was a violation of the sacred law, for stories were the vessels of knowledge, morality, and survival. Through them, people learned how to find food, how to respect boundaries, and how to maintain balance. The Dreamtime, then, was not confined to the past. It was carried forward through each generation, living in the stories tied to totems and the land. Why giving people totems, Baiame did more than connect them to animals. He gave them a system of belonging. In a vast land where survival depended on cooperation, totems created unity and identity. They reminded each person that they were not alone, that they were part of a clan, a landscape, and a cosmic story stretching back to the beginning. The kangaroo clan might be separated from the eagle clan by distance, but both were united in their shared responsibility to the law of Baiame. This law was not enforced by punishment alone, but by the deep spiritual knowledge that breaking it would disrupt the balance of the entire world. The act of creation was therefore both physical and moral. The land was filled with animals and humans, but their existence was ordered through the spiritual connections Baiame established. Each being was not just alive, but significant, carrying meaning within the great web of creation. This was the genius of Baiame's law. It did not place humans above animals, nor animals above humans. It recognized that all life forms were kin, each contributing to the survival and sacredness of the world. Rock art and oral traditions preserve these teachings. In carvings and paintings, figures of animals alongside human forms illustrate the bonds of totems. Ceremonial songs recount the stories of creation, ensuring that the knowledge is not lost. Even today, Aboriginal communities continue to honor these connections, recognizing in them not only their spiritual roots, but also their ecological wisdom. For the totemic system teaches that sustainability is not a modern invention, but an ancient law, one that Baiame inscribed into creation itself. In creating beings and totems, Baiame revealed one of his most profound lessons, that identity is inseparable from responsibility. To be human is not merely to exist, but to live rightly, respecting the connections that sustain life. The totemic bonds ensured that people would never see themselves as isolated individuals, but as parts of a living whole. In this way, Baiame prepared humanity not only to survive, but to flourish within the dreaming. Thus, the creation of beings and the giving of totems was not the end of Baiame's work, but the beginning of community. People had a place within the world. Animals had guardians among humans, and stories wove them together into an unbreakable fabric. With this foundation, Baiame could move to the next stage of his mission, giving the people the sacred laws that would govern their lives, ceremonies, and responsibilities. For creation without law could not endure. Balance had been established, but it needed to be maintained. And so, the lawgiver prepared to speak. With the land shaped and the beings of earth and sky brought to life, Baiame turned to the final element that would ensure creation endured: law. Creation alone was not enough. Without guidance, people might act recklessly, taking more than they needed, forgetting their responsibilities to the land and to one another. Animals might be hunted into scarcity. Rivers might be polluted by carelessness. Clans might quarrel until they destroyed themselves. Baiame understood that harmony required not only the beauty of landscapes and the abundance of life, but also rules to hold them together. Thus, he stepped into his role as the lawgiver, giving humanity the principles of balance, responsibility, and respect. In Aboriginal traditions, these laws are sometimes referred to as lore. Unlike modern legal systems, which are often written down in books and enforced by governments, the lore given by Baiame was embedded in the land, the songs, and the ceremonies. They were not human inventions, but revelations, truths that had always existed within the Dreamtime and were made known through Baiame's teachings. Because of this, law was not external to life, but woven into its very fabric. To break the law was not just to disobey a rule, but to tear at the fabric of existence itself. The Baiame's laws covered every aspect of life. He instructed people on how to gather food, teaching them to hunt only what was needed and only in the right seasons. Animals were not to be slaughtered recklessly, but honored. For each creature was both kin and teacher. He gave rules about waterholes, explaining that they must be shared fairly and never polluted, for water was life itself. Fire was to be respected, used for cooking and managing the land, but never unleashed carelessly. Through these teachings, Baiame ensured that the people would survive in harmony with the land rather than against it. But Baiame's role as lawgiver extended beyond survival. He also gave people moral laws, shaping how they treated one another. He taught them to honor their elders, for the wisdom of age was the foundation of community. He established marriage rules, connecting totems and clans so that people would know whom they could and could not marry. These rules prevented conflict, ensured genetic diversity, and bound groups together in mutual respect. To break them was not just a personal failure, but a violation of the cosmic order. Ceremony 2. was central to Baiame's law. He instructed the people to sing the sacred songs and perform the dances that would keep the dreaming alive. These rituals were not optional. They were duties that renewed the connection between people, ancestors, and land. To neglect ceremony was to risk losing touch with the very forces that sustained life. Through ritual, the people remembered the stories of creation, honored their totems, and passed knowledge from one generation to the next. Baiame himself was often invoked during these ceremonies. His presence felt in the sacred Bora grounds where boys were initiated into manhood. The Bora grounds were among Baiame's most important gifts. These were sacred spaces, often marked by circular earth mounds, where men gathered for initiation ceremonies. Here, young boys were taught the laws of Baiame, learning the songs, dances, and secrets that would guide them into adulthood. The ceremonies were demanding, requiring discipline and respect, but they were essential for becoming a full member of the community. Through them, Baiame's laws were not only told but embodied, ensuring that they lived on in the hearts and actions of the people. One of the striking features of Baiame's law was that it emphasized responsibility over power. Unlike systems where laws exist to control or punish, Baiame's laws were designed to remind people of their duties. To hunt with respect, to share water, to honor elders. These were not enforced by fear, but by the understanding that breaking them would harm the entire community and disrupt the balance of creation. Justice was not about retribution, but about restoration. When someone broke a law, the community sought to correct the imbalance, often through ritual or restitution, bringing life back into harmony. Even today, Aboriginal elders speak of Baiame's law as something living and ongoing. It is not confined to the past, nor is it a relic of mythology. The lore continues to guide communities, shaping how people interact with the land and with one another. The stories of Baiame remind everyone that laws are not arbitrary human decisions, but sacred truths revealed through the Dreamtime. This perspective challenges modern assumptions about law as external and imposed. For Aboriginal peoples, law is natural, spiritual, and eternal. The image of Baiame as the lawgiver is often depicted in art. In the Baiame caves, rock paintings show a giant figure with arms outstretched, as if embracing the whole world. Some say his hands stretch across the land to mark the boundaries of law, reminding people that no place is outside his gaze. Others interpret the image as a gesture of generosity, symbolizing the gifts he gave to humanity. Either way, the artwork serves as a constant reminder. Baiame is not only the creator of land and beings, but also the guardian of justice and order. Through his laws, Baiame gave people more than survival. He gave them identity. To be human was not simply to exist, but to live rightly, honoring one's responsibilities to the land, the animals, the ancestors, and the community. Each person carried a role, just as each creature carried its totemic duty. In this way, Baiame's law bound creation together into a single, harmonious whole. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Baiame's law is its enduring relevance. In a modern world often marked by exploitation, inequality, and environmental destruction, the teachings of Baiame remain profoundly wise. They remind us that law should not be about domination, but about balance, not about greed, but about sharing, not about punishment, but about restoration. These truths, revealed in the Dreamtime, continue to speak with urgency today. Thus, Baiame's role as the lawgiver is as vital as his role as the creator. He did not simply form mountains and rivers and leave them to chance. He gave humanity the tools to live in harmony with those creations, ensuring that balance would endure across generations. To this day, the laws of Baiame echo in ceremonies, in stories, and in the very rhythms of the land. To follow them is to walk rightly within the Dreamtime. To neglect them is to risk falling into chaos. I end this way. The story of Baiame as the lawgiver is not only a chapter in a myth, but a blueprint for living. It reminds us that creation is not complete without responsibility, that existence is not secure without justice, and that life flourishes only when guided by respect. Baiame's laws remain a gift, as essential as rivers and stars, carrying humanity forward as surely as the Dreamtime carries the world itself. In every culture, moments of transition, birth, coming of age, marriage, death, are marked by rituals. These ceremonies help individuals understand their roles within the larger community and connect them to the values that sustain their people. For the Aboriginal peoples of southeastern Australia, such moments were inseparable from Baiame, the creator and lawgiver. Among his greatest gifts was the establishment of the Bora grounds, sacred initiation sites where the law was taught, songs were sung, and boys were transformed into men. These grounds were not ordinary places. They were carefully chosen and constructed in patterns that carried symbolic meaning. Often, they consisted of two circles, one large, one smaller, connected by a pathway. The larger circle represented the public domain, where general gatherings and preliminary ceremonies took place. The smaller circle, hidden and restricted, was the most sacred. Here, the final stages of initiation occurred, reserved only for those undergoing transformation and for the elders who guided them. The path between the circles symbolized the journey of life, from childhood to adulthood, from ignorance to wisdom, from the ordinary world to the sacred. The Baiame's role in these ceremonies was profound. He was believed to be present during initiations, watching over the young men as they learned the laws of life. Some traditions describe him as descending from the sky to bless the ceremonies, ensuring their sanctity. In the stories told around the fire, elders would recount how Baiame had once gathered the first ancestors and instructed them on how these ceremonies must be performed, passing down the knowledge from generation to generation. To alter or abandon the rituals was unthinkable, for they had been given by the Sky Father himself. The initiation process was long and demanding, often lasting weeks or even months. Boys were removed from their families and taken to the Bora grounds by the initiated men of the community. This separation was symbolic. They were leaving behind the innocence of childhood, stepping into a new world of responsibility. During this time, they were taught the sacred songs, dances, and symbols that contained the essence of the Dreamtime. The stories of Baiame, the rainbow serpent, Duramulum, and countless other beings were revealed in layers, each carrying moral, spiritual, and ecological wisdom. The heart of initiation was the transmission of law, the same laws Baiame had first revealed to humanity. The boys learned about totems and kinship rules, about hunting practices and marriage restrictions, about ceremonies and their importance in sustaining life. These teachings were not abstract. They were acted out in songs and dances, embodied in scarification and painted designs, etched into memory through experience. By undergoing the initiation, the boys did not merely learn about the laws. They became living bearers of them. One powerful aspect of the ceremonies was the role of secrecy and sacredness. Not everything was told at once, and not everything could be shared with everyone. There were layers of knowledge, some for the uninitiated, some for women, some for children, and some only for men who had undergone the rites. This secrecy was not about exclusion, but about responsibility. Knowledge carried weight, and it could only be entrusted to those prepared to honor and uphold it. In this way, Baiame's teachings were protected, ensuring they were never treated lightly or misused. Art played an important role in the Bora grounds. Carvings on trees, engravings on rocks, and earth designs marked the sacred spaces. Many of these depicted Baiame himself, arms outstretched, overseeing the ceremonies. Others represented totems, ancestral beings, or symbolic patterns tied to the laws of creation. These artworks were not decorative. They were sacred texts, visual reminders of the dreaming. They connected the ceremonies to the broader landscape, linking the specific ground to the eternal world of Baiame. The ceremonies were also deeply communal. While only men and boys directly participated in the Bora rituals, the entire community was involved in preparing for and supporting them. Women sang songs, prepared food, and reinforced the teachings in their own ways. Younger children observed what was appropriate for their age, knowing that one day they too would walk the pathway into the sacred circle. In this way, the Bora grounds were not just about individual transformation, but about renewing the bonds of the whole community. Perhaps the most important lesson conveyed through the initiation was responsibility. Baiame had created the world with balance. and it was the duty of every initiated man to maintain that balance. The ceremonies impressed upon the boys that they were now guardians of the law, protectors of the land, and role models for those who came after them. They were no longer free to act as they pleased. Their actions carried consequences not only for themselves, but for the entire community and for creation itself. The memory of these sacred ceremonies endures in Aboriginal communities today. Though colonization disrupted many traditions, elders continue to speak of the Bora grounds, of the carvings of Baiame, and of the sacred laws taught there. In some places, the Bora rings remain visible, silent witnesses to centuries of ritual. To walk among them is to feel the presence of Baiame, to sense the weight of generations who stood there, sang the songs, and stepped into manhood under the watchful eyes of the Sky Father. Anthropologists who studied these ceremonies in the 19th and 20th centuries often misunderstood them, reducing them to mere rites of passage. But for Aboriginal peoples, they were far more. They were the lifeblood of culture, the channel through which Baiame's law was renewed in every generation. Without them, society could not endure. The Bora grounds were not just initiation sites. They were the center of life, where the spiritual and the social intertwined. In reflecting on Baiame's gift of sacred ceremonies, one sees a powerful truth. Creation is not static. It is renewed through practice, through ritual, through the deliberate passing of knowledge. The Bora grounds ensured that Baiame's law was not lost in the flow of time, but remained alive in every heart, every song, every footprint on the sacred earth. They embodied the principle that being human is not merely a biological fact, but a spiritual calling, to live rightly within the Dreamtime, guided by the laws of the Creator. Thus, the sacred ceremonies and initiation grounds stand as some of Baiame's most profound legacies. They shaped individuals, united communities, and tied humanity to the eternal order of the world. To this day, they remind us that wisdom is not simply inherited but earned, that adulthood is not a matter of age but of responsibility, and that the laws of creation must be renewed through ceremony if life is to flourish. No great lawgiver or creator exists in isolation. Even Baiame, the Sky Father, was part of a larger spiritual network. His presence as the first creator and lawgiver was profound, but his influence was shaped and supported by those closest to him, his family. In Aboriginal traditions across southeastern Australia, Baiame's household included his wife Bora and his son Dreamtime. Together, this divine family embodied different aspects of creation, law, and guidance. Around them also lived other spiritual beings, allies, tricksters, and forces of the Dreamtime who interacted with humanity in ways both benevolent and challenging to understand Baiame fully. Then, one must also understand his family. The stories of Bora and Dreamtime reveal dimensions of law and creation that complement Baiame's own role. They remind us that balance does not come from a single figure, but from relationships between male and female, father and child, sky and earth, creation and law. Bora, the mother spirit, sometimes described as Baiame's wife, is a motherly figure in many traditions. She is often associated with fertility, nurturing, and the cycles of nature. Where Baiame represents the overarching law and structure, Bora embodies the nurturing principles that sustain life. If Baiame carved out rivers and mountains, Bora filled them with water and vegetation, ensuring that creation could flourish. In some accounts, she is also identified as a goddess of fertility, watching over women and childbirth. This connection highlights the complementary nature of spiritual roles. Baiame gave the laws of kinship and marriage, but it was Bora who safeguarded the continuity of life itself. Her presence affirmed that creation was not only about shaping the land, but about sustaining communities through future generations. Some stories describe her as an ever-present guide for women, just as Baiame guided men. While men underwent initiations at the Bora grounds, women were often taught their roles and responsibilities through traditions linked to Bora. Her stories carried lessons about care, resourcefulness, and the sacredness of life. In this way, The divine family mirrored human society. Men and women both carried responsibilities, each with their own sacred guidance. Duramulam. The son and messenger, the figure of Duramulam, sometimes spelled Duramulan or Duramulan, holds a particularly fascinating place in Aboriginal mythology. As the son of Baiame and Bora, he was a bridge between the divine and the human. While Baiame was the supreme lawgiver, often distant and watching from the sky, Duramulam acted more directly as a messenger and enforcer of the law. Duramulam was often depicted as a one-legged being, with the other leg merged into his body, symbolizing his unique nature as neither fully of the human world nor fully beyond it. Some rock engravings show him with a large emu's foot, connecting him to animal totems and emphasizing his role as a liminal figure, part human, part spirit, part animal. During initiation ceremonies at the Bora grounds, Duramulam played a vital role. He was believed to be present, watching over the boys as they were instructed in the laws. In some traditions, the sound of the bull roarer, a sacred wooden instrument swung on a cord to create a roaring, humming sound, was said to be Duramulam's voice. Only initiated men could hear and understand this sound fully, for it was a communication from the spirit world, a direct sign that the laws being taught were sanctified by Baiame's son himself. Duramulam also served as a figure of justice. While Baiame embodied the ultimate authority of law, Duramulam was often the one who intervened in human affairs when those laws were broken. In stories, he punished those who disrespected sacred grounds or ignored ceremonial obligations. Yet he could also be merciful, guiding people back to the right path when they strayed. His role as mediator made him a powerful reminder that law was not abstract, but lived and enforced in daily life, that a family of balance together, Baiame, Bora, and Duramulam formed a triad that balanced creation, nurturing, and law. Baiame gave the structures of life, Bora ensured its continuity, and Duramulam mediated between law and humanity. This family reflected the interconnectedness of male and female, parent and child, divine and human. Importantly, their roles reinforce the principle that no single being or person holds absolute power. Just as Baiame shared creation with his family, human communities shared responsibilities among men, women, elders, and children. Authority was always balanced by care, and law was always paired with nurturing. Other spirits of the Dreamtime, while Baiame's family held central roles, they existed within a much broader world of spirits. The Dreamtime was alive with beings who shaped the land, taught lessons, and sometimes tested humanity. Among them were figures like the Rainbow Serpent, who carved out waterways and embodied the cycles of life and renewal. Though not always directly tied to Baiame, the Rainbow Serpent complemented his role, representing the power of water and transformation. There were also trickster figures, spirits who disrupted order and forced humans to learn lessons through mischief or hardship. These figures reminded people that even in a world guided by law, chaos and unpredictability were never far away. They tested the strength of Baiame's teachings, challenging humans to remain true to their responsibilities even when faced with temptation or confusion. In addition, ancestral heroes and totemic beings walked the earth, each leaving behind stories tied to particular landscapes. Every hill, river, and tree could hold the memory of a spirit's action, making the land itself a living text of the Dreamtime. Through these beings, Baiame's laws were not abstract commandments, but deeply embedded truths written across the earth. The family in rock art and tradition, the importance of Baiame's family can still be seen in Aboriginal art and cultural memory. At some rock art sites, Baiame is depicted alongside Bora and Duramulam. His great figure may be shown with outstretched arms, while smaller figures represent his family, emphasizing their roles in creation. The sound of the bull roarer, preserved in ceremonies to this day, continues to echo as the voice of Duramulam. For many communities, these figures are not distant mythological characters, but living presences. They are felt in ceremonies, seen in dreams, and remembered in songs. To speak of Baiame is often also to speak of his family, for their roles cannot be separated. Together, they represent the wholeness of life, the union of law, nurture, and enforcement. Lessons for Humanity. The story of Baiame's family teaches that creation is relational. Just as no child grows without a parent, no lawgiver rules without those who nurture and enforce the law. Baiame's greatness lies not only in his power, but in his willingness to share it with Bora, with Dreamtime, and with the countless beings of the Dreamtime. For human communities, this story reinforces the importance of shared responsibility. Men and women, elders and youth, all carry roles that sustain society. Authority without compassion is incomplete, just as compassion without justice cannot stand. Balance is the key, reflected in the divine family and in the structure of human life itself. In seeing Baiame's family, we are reminded that life is not about dominance, but about connection. The Sky Father, the Mother Spirit, and the Messenger Son form a circle of creation and guidance that continues to inspire Aboriginal communities. Their presence in stories, ceremonies, and landscapes ensures that Baiame's law is never abstract, but always embodied in relationships, between divine and human, between man and woman, between parent and child, between law and life. Every lawgiver becomes known not only by the laws he proclaims, but also by the way those laws are lived out in stories. For Aboriginal peoples, Baiame's authority as the Sky Father and Lawgiver was remembered in countless narratives that revealed how justice was to be understood and practiced. These are not dry rules or abstract commandments. They were living parables, tales of people who obeyed or broke the law, of spirits who rewarded balance and punished selfishness, of lessons carved into the memory of the land itself. Through these stories, communities came to see that law was not simply about avoiding punishment, but about preserving harmony. Justice in Baiame's world was restorative, aiming to heal the rift when balance was broken. Yet it was also firm, reminding people that creation itself could not endure if its principles were ignored. The man who took more than his share, one story often told, concerns a man who grew greedy in his hunting. While Baiame had decreed that animals should only be taken as needed, with gratitude and respect, this man sought to gather far more than his family could eat. He killed kangaroos in great numbers and hoarded their meat, boasting of his skill. First, the community warned him, reminding him of Baiame's law. But he ignored them, laughing that he was cleverer than the rest. Then one night, a terrible storm broke out. Thunder roared, lightning flashed, and the man's shelter collapsed. He and his hoarded meat were washed away in a flood. The survivors told the story as a warning. Baiame's laws could not be mocked. Greed did not only harm the greedy, but threatened the balance of the land itself. The moral was clear: take only what you need and share what you have. Justice in this story was not about punishment for its own sake, but about restoring balance. The man's removal allowed harmony to return, while the community learned again to respect Baiame's decree. The brothers who fought. Another tale speaks of two brothers who quarreled over hunting grounds. Baiame had given each clan their totems and territories, ensuring that all would have enough. But the brothers grew jealous, each claiming the other had encroached on his land. Their fighting grew fierce, and soon the whole community was torn apart, with relatives choosing sides. In despair, the elders called upon Baiame. The Sky Father appeared in a vision, his arms outstretched, his voice like the wind. He reminded the brothers that the land did not belong to them, but to all creation. Each clan was a caretaker, not an owner. Their fighting dishonored their ancestors and endangered the balance of the world. Ashamed, the brothers reconciled. They divided the land again, not as rivals, but as caretakers, promising to hunt only within their allotted boundaries. To this day, some rivers and ridges are said to mark the places where Baiame settled their quarrel, natural reminders of the law of kinship and sharing. Dreamtime and a dishonest man. Sometimes Baiame acted through his son Dreamtime, whose role as messenger and enforcer of the law made him a central figure in justice. In one story, a man lied during a ceremony, claiming knowledge of sacred songs he had not been entrusted with. This was a grave offense, for sacred knowledge was not a matter of pride, but a responsibility carried only by the worthy. When the bull roarer was swung, its humming voice filled the air. Dreamtime's presence was felt, and the man trembled. That night, he dreamed of Dreamtime, who rebuked him for his dishonesty. The next day, he confessed his lie before the community. Rather than being punished harshly, he was given a chance to redeem himself. He served the elders faithfully for years, earning the right to learn the songs properly. This story showed that justice was not always about punishment, but about restoration. Duramulam's intervention corrected the imbalance, guiding the man back to the right path. The community was strengthened, for they learned that honesty and humility were central to Baiame's law. The woman who saved her people. Not all stories of justice involved wrongdoing. Some celebrated those who embodied Baiame's law with courage. One such story tells of a woman who saw that her people were starving during a harsh drought. She knew of a hidden waterhole, but it was sacred, reserved only for emergencies. Remembering Baiame's teaching that law was about balance and life, she led her people there, saving them from death. When the drought ended, the elders debated whether she had broken the law by revealing the sacred site. But in a dream, Baiame appeared, declaring that her action had upheld the deeper law, the preservation of life. Rules were not chains, but pathways to harmony. By using the waterhole wisely, she had honored his will. This story reminded the people that law must always serve life. Justice was not rigid. It was rooted in compassion and responsibility. Justice in the landscape. Many of these stories are tied to specific places. A ridge may be said to be where the greedy hunter's shelter collapsed, or a split rock where the quarreling brothers reconciled. In this way, the land itself became a record of justice. To walk through the country was to walk through a library of law, with every hill and waterhole carrying a lesson. This embedding of justice in the landscape ensured that Baiame's law was always present, not hidden in books, but written in earth and stone. Children grew up surrounded by these reminders, hearing the stories as they traveled and learning that every place had meaning. Principles of Baiame's justice. What emerges from these stories is a consistent vision of justice. Unlike many modern systems, which focus on retribution, Baiame's justice emphasized balance, ensuring that no one takes too much, that land and community remain in harmony. Restoration, guiding wrongdoers back to the right path rather than destroying them. Responsibility, reminding everyone that their actions affect not only themselves, but the entire community and creation. Compassion, recognizing that laws exist to protect life, not to oppress it. This vision of justice reflects a profound wisdom. It recognizes human weakness and error, but insists that harmony can be restored if people are willing to listen, learn, and change. The relevance today, even in modern times, the stories of Baiame's justice carry relevance. As societies struggle with inequality, environmental destruction, and conflicts over land, the principles of balance, restoration, responsibility, and compassion speak with striking clarity. The greedy hunter mirrors modern overconsumption. The quarreling brothers echo conflicts between nations and communities. The dishonest man resembles those who misuse power or knowledge. And the courageous woman reflects those who uphold justice even in difficult circumstances. Through these parallels, Baiame's justice reminds us that law is not about domination, but about life. It teaches that justice must always be tied to responsibility, that communities thrive not by punishing endlessly, but by restoring harmony. Closing reflection, the stories of Baiame's justice are more than myths. They are guides for living. They reveal a world where every action matters, where the land remembers, and where balance is the highest form of law. Through them, the Sky Father continues to speak, reminding humanity that justice is not an abstract principle, but a way of walking in harmony with creation. This day, elders tell these stories around fires, on sacred grounds, and during ceremonies. In every retelling, Baiame's law is renewed, and his justice lives on. The Sky Father's voice may echo in thunder, in bull roars, or in dreams, but always it calls people back to balance, back to responsibility, back to the eternal order of the Dreamtime. The Dreamtime is not a past event. It is ongoing, an eternal dimension that continues to shape the present. Nowhere is this more evident than in the legacy of Baiame. Though his acts of creation belong to mythic time, the evidence of his presence remains etched into the land, into rock art, into ceremonies, and into the memory of Aboriginal peoples. Baiame's law lives not only in stories but in sacred sites, cultural practices, and enduring values that guide communities even today. His legacy is both physical and spiritual, visible in carvings and invisible in the wisdom passed from elders to youth. Sacred rock art and Baiame's image. One of the most striking aspects of Baiame's legacy is his presence in Aboriginal rock art. Across New South Wales and other regions of southeastern Australia, there are sites where enormous figures of Baiame are painted or engraved into rock shelters. Perhaps the most famous is the Baiame Cave near Milbrodale in the Hunter Valley. There, a vast figure with outstretched arms spans the rock face, his eyes large and watchful, his form filled with patterns and designs. This image is powerful not only for its scale, but for its symbolism. Baiame is depicted with his arms open wide, as though embracing the world. Some interpret this as a sign of his generosity, a reminder that he gave law, life, and land to the people. Others see it as a sign of his authority, for his gaze seems to cover everything, leaving no place outside his law. Children who grew up seeing this painting would know that Baiame was always present, watching, guiding, protecting, and judging. Rock art of Baiame is not merely decorative. It is a sacred text, a visual law book. Each line, each shape carries meaning, linked to stories told in ceremony. In this way, the rock itself becomes a living scripture. The people did not need books of paper. The land itself recorded Baiame's presence, ensuring that his image endured across generations. Bora grounds and ceremonial sites equally significant are the Bora grounds, the sacred initiation sites established by Baiame. Even today, remnants of these grounds can be found, circles of earth, sometimes connected by paths, carved into the landscape. Archaeologists have studied them, but for Aboriginal communities, they are far more than archaeological features. They are living places where Baiame's laws were taught and renewed. Each circle, each pathway, represented stages of life and layers of law. The very ground was infused with meaning. To walk into the Bora ground was to step into Baiame's world, to move from the ordinary into the sacred. These places remain deeply revered. Even where ceremonies no longer occur, the Bora grounds are respected as reminders of the sacred order. In some communities, elders still bring younger people to these sites, telling them the stories, pointing out carvings or arrangements of stones, and reminding them that Baiame once walked there. In this way, the land continues to speak, even in times of disruption. Carvings and engravings beyond painted caves and Bora grounds. Baiame's presence is also remembered in tree carvings and rock engravings. Some depict his son Daramulum, often with one leg or with the symbol of the bull roarer, linking ceremonies directly to the divine family. Others show totemic animals connected to Baiame's law, such as emus or kangaroos. These carvings served as teaching tools, reminding communities of their responsibilities to the land and to one another. The carvings were not static. They were renewed through ritual, reinscribed, or repainted during ceremonies. This act of renewal mirrored the belief that the Dreamtime itself was ongoing. Baiame was not a figure of the past, but a presence continually invoked and reaffirmed. Baiame in songlines. Another profound legacy of Baiame is found in songlines, the networks of songs and stories that crisscross the continent. A songline is both a map and a spiritual pathway. It tells the story of a being, often from the Dreamtime, and links different locations where that being acted. To follow a songline is to walk in the footsteps of creation, remembering and renewing the sacred order. The Baiame songlines connect many parts of southeastern Australia. They trace the journeys he made during creation, shaping rivers, mountains, and valleys. By singing the songs, people keep the land alive. The lyrics describe not only spiritual truths, but also practical knowledge, where waterholes lie, what animals live in certain regions, how to navigate the terrain. In this way, Baiame's legacy is woven into the very movement of people across the land. Walking and singing along his pathways is an act of devotion, a reaffirmation of his law, and a way of keeping the Dreamtime alive. The enduring values of Baiame's law, rock art, and Bora grounds are tangible, Baiame's greatest legacy may be the values he instilled. These principles continue to guide Aboriginal communities today, despite centuries of disruption through colonization. Respect for the land. Baiame taught that land was sacred, not property to be owned, but a gift to be cared for. This principle remains central in Aboriginal culture, shaping efforts to protect sacred sites and preserve natural environments. Kinship and responsibility. Baiame's laws of kinship created a web of relationships that ensured every person had obligations and support. This system still underpins community life, reminding people that no one is isolated but part of a larger whole. Ceremony and storytelling. The rituals established by Baiame ensured that knowledge was passed down. Even today, storytelling remains a powerful way of teaching values, identity, and connection to the land. Justice as balance. Baiame's stories of justice, emphasizing restoration and harmony, continue to influence how communities resolve conflicts, favoring reconciliation over punishment. These values demonstrate that Baiame's law was not a relic of the Dreamtime, but a living tradition. Challenges and survival colonization brought immense challenges to the legacy of Baiame. Sacred sites were destroyed, ceremonies suppressed, and communities displaced from their lands. Missionaries and officials often misunderstood or dismissed Baiame's stories, seeing them as mere myths rather than profound truths. Bora grounds were bulldozed, carvings vandalized, and knowledge fragmented. Yet despite these hardships, the legacy endures. Elders continue to teach the stories, often in secret when suppression was harsh, and openly in recent times as cultural revival has gained strength. Sites like the Baiame Cave remain protected, visited by Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people alike as places of deep significance. Today, many Aboriginal communities are working to reclaim and revitalize their traditions. Ceremonies are being revived, language is being taught, and sacred sites are being honored again. Baiame's presence remains central in this renewal, for he is not only the creator of the Dreamtime, but also a symbol of resilience and continuity. That Baiame's legacy in the modern world beyond Aboriginal communities. Baiame's legacy carries lessons for the modern world. His laws of respect for land speak directly to contemporary struggles with climate change and environmental destruction. His vision of justice as restoration offers alternatives to punitive systems that often perpetuate cycles of harm. His insistence on kinship and community challenges the isolation and individualism of modern societies that in this way. Baiame's teachings are not only cultural treasures, but universal wisdom. They remind humanity that survival depends on balance, that law must serve life, and that the land itself is sacred. Closing reflection, the legacy of Baiame is vast and enduring. It is seen in rock art, Bora grounds, engravings, and songlines. It is felt in ceremonies, stories, and values that continue to guide Aboriginal life. It is remembered in every sacred site where his presence is still felt, and in every song where his name is invoked. Walk the land of southeastern Australia is to walk in Baiame's legacy. The mountains, rivers, and caves bear his imprint. The communities who tell his stories carry his law. The world itself is his monument, a living testament to the creator and lawgiver who continues to shape existence through the Dreamtime. That Baiame's legacy is not simply history. It is a present reality, a call to live with respect, responsibility, and balance. In honoring his legacy, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal peoples are invited to step into harmony with creation, to walk rightly upon the earth, and to remember that every action is part of the ongoing story of life. When one reflects upon the great span of the Dreamtime and the figure of Baiame at its center, it becomes clear that his story is not simply an ancient tale confined to mythic time. Baiame's presence continues, his law still resonates, and his teachings endure as an eternal framework for living in balance with the world. To conclude the journey through Baiame's narrative, one must recognize that his legacy cannot be neatly closed. It remains open-ended, a living current of wisdom flowing into the present and future. Baiame as Eternal Sky Father. Baiame is often referred to as the Sky Father, the one who looks down upon the earth with eyes that see everything. This vision of a divine figure above, both protective and authoritative, remains profoundly relevant. In Aboriginal belief, Baiame did not vanish after creating the world. He withdrew to the sky, where he continues to oversee the law he gave. Unlike many mythologies where gods disappear into the past, Baiame's story reminds us that creation is not finished. The Dreamtime is not over. It continues to shape reality. Every sunrise, every storm, every movement of animals across the land can be understood as part of this ongoing creation. Baiame, therefore, is not locked in history, but is present in every moment of life. This enduring presence emphasizes accountability. People know that Baiame still sees, still hears, still holds them to the laws he gave. His eternal law is not a distant decree, but a living presence woven into daily life. Eternal law versus temporal law. To understand Baiame's eternal law, one must distinguish it from the shifting systems of human governance. Temporal law, the kind written by governments, enforced by courts, and revised with time, changes with history. It reflects the needs and biases of societies at specific moments. Baiame's law, by contrast, is eternal. It does not change because it is rooted in the order of creation itself. This eternal law is not about punishment or bureaucracy. It is about balance. Every law Baiame gave, regarding kinship, marriage, ceremony, and land, was meant to sustain harmony between humans, nature, and spirit. Violation of these laws disrupted not only social order, but the balance of the cosmos. Justice, then, was about restoring balance, not inflicting retribution. In the modern world, where legal systems often struggle with inequality, corruption, and rigidity, Baiame's eternal law offers a profound reminder. Law must serve life, not dominate it. True justice is not about power, but about restoration. Lessons for humanity. At the close of his story, one must ask, what does Baiame teach us today? His eternal law speaks not only to Aboriginal communities, but to all humanity. 3 lessons stand out. Respect for the earth, as sacred. Baiame created rivers, mountains, and animals not for exploitation, but for shared life. The law of Baiame insists that land is not property, but kin, alive with spirit. In a time of ecological crisis, this teaching is vital. Humanity cannot survive if it treats the earth as lifeless matter. By seeing the land as Baiame's body, people are reminded to tread lightly, to care, to protect, and to preserve. The centrality of kinship and responsibility. Baiame's law structured communities so that every person was connected through webs of kinship. No one was left without support or obligation. This model offers an antidote to modern isolation and fragmentation. In societies plagued by loneliness, individualism, and division, Baiame's vision reminds us that strength comes from interconnection, from recognizing our responsibilities to one another. Justice is balance, not punishment. Baiame's stories of judgment always focus on restoring harmony. Wrongdoers were not cast out permanently, but guided back into the balance when possible. This restorative model resonates with modern movements for reconciliation, rehabilitation, and peace building. It challenges punitive systems that often perpetuate cycles of harm, urging instead a justice rooted in healing. The resilience of Baiame's story. The story of Baiame has survived colonization, suppression, and attempts to erase Aboriginal culture. Despite missionaries condemning the Sky Father as pagan, despite governments banning ceremonies, despite the disruption of communities through displacement, Baiame's name remains spoken. His cave still stands, his engravings endure, his stories are still told around fires and in classrooms. This resilience itself is a testimony to the eternal nature of Baiame's law. It cannot be erased because it is written not only in memory, but in the very land. Uluru, the rivers, the Bora grounds, all bear his signature. Elders continue to pass on his teachings, ensuring that the next generation knows the laws of balance and respect. The survival of Baiame's story is also a story of hope. It shows that even in the face of immense disruption, truth endures. The eternal law cannot be silenced. Baiame and the dreaming beyond borders. Though Baiame is specific to Aboriginal nations of southeastern Australia, his teachings have universal resonance. Around the world, cultures tell of creators and lawgivers, the Great Spirit, the Sky Father, or the gods of Olympus. Yet Baiame's vision stands out for its emphasis on harmony, balance, and ongoing creation. For non-Aboriginal peoples, listening to Baiame's story offers a chance to learn humility and respect. It is not about appropriation, but about recognition that there are ancient laws older than modern states, deeper than written codes, wiser than the rush of industry. By honoring Baiame's law, even indirectly, one honors the principle that the earth is sacred and that human life must be lived in balance. Baiame, as symbol of renewal, every story of Baiame ends not with closure, but with renewal. His withdrawal into the sky is not abandonment, but empowerment. He left the people with law, ceremony, and responsibility so that they could continue the Dreamtime themselves. This, perhaps, is his greatest gift. He trusted humanity with the continuation of creation in times of crisis. Whether environmental, social, or personal, Baiame's story invites people to return to balance, to remember the eternal law, and to walk rightly upon the land. His outstretched arms, seen in the cave painting, still embrace the world, still invite humanity back into harmony. Closing vision as this narrative concludes, imagine once more the vast Australian sky, filled with stars that seem endless. Beneath that sky lies a land carved by rivers and mountains, its sacredness inscribed by countless generations. In that sky dwells Baiame, the first creator and lawgiver, the eternal presence who continues to oversee the world. His eyes watch, his arms stretch wide, his law resounds in the silence of the night, and in the songs of birds at dawn. Baiame's eternal law is not a relic of the past. It is a living truth that continues to guide, inspire, and call humanity to balance. To walk the earth with respect, to honor kinship, to seek justice through harmony. These are not outdated ideals, but timeless imperatives. The story of Baiame does not end here. It continues every time a child learns the dreaming, every time a ceremony renews the connection, every time someone pauses to honor the land. In remembering Baiame, one participates in the eternal law itself. Thus, the journey closes not with an ending, but with an opening, an invitation to live rightly under the gaze of Baiame, the Sky Father, whose creation endures and whose law is forever.